country club, Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't trying to sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it. Paint a country club, Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't trying to sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it.
Okay, firstly, I gotta address apologetics. It doesn't make sense, I'm not sorry, I don't get it. The fact that he was crucified means that we're all indebted. We should demand to have a culture that doesn't soon forget it. Every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess it. Christ is king, listen up, get the message. The time is short, the deception is impressive. The church itself is corrupted and wretched. They preach about grace, no righteousness expected. God gaze at the pulpit because their sin is accepted. The devil calls, they don't even try to reject it. They're employed by Satan, they are tax exempted.
Ain't a country club, Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't trying to sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it. Ain't a country club, Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't trying to sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell
It's
it.
neither land of the free, nor is it home of the brave. When you got people here killing babies every day, and all the Christians here think that they can get away if they throw a couple bucks into the bucket on Sunday. But I don't think that that's the way it works. He said to seek the kingdom and its righteousness first, but you wanna grab a handbag, a Rolex, and what's worse, you think that you deserve it, but the bubble's about to burst. It's time to rise, sell the cloak for a weapon. Got the sword in my left, in the right, Smith & Wesson. And I don't think it's wise for you to try to be testing. If you become a Goliath, then I'ma teach you a lesson. It's a cost to see, and what the cost will be is the people in the church and state accosting me. But I'm speaking honestly, you are not the boss of me, because I only give allegiance to the one true king. And I don't care if we burn down this whole country, cause it's wretched and rusty and rotten, stupid and ugly. And I got no love for churches and preachers set up above me, cause their democracy's about to be replaced with monarchy.
Ain't a country club, Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't trying to sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it. Ain't a country club, Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't trying to sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Main Character Podcast. What are we looking at now? Level 82. Made possible by the Cult of Con. That's you guys. I'm Con Man, and thank you for being here. We are back. Wednesday, hump day, trash day. Let's get it. What's up, everybody? Once again, we are here on Wednesday night for the Main Character Podcast. Of course, as I said, made possible by you guys. And of course, the Main Character Podcast is also powered by the Christian Dominion movement, because the truth should not only be declared, it should be imposed. Let's go. All right, everybody, great to see you here. We've got the community popping in right now. Everybody throwing their greetings in the chat. I'll go ahead and say hi to everybody. Just throw off a couple of these, season's greetings. You know how it is. I see it. I see Wendy's got Awooga. Good to see you, Wendy. Of course, welcome in. We got everybody in here today. I was late because I was in the chat messing around, and then I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be live right now. It's so good to see you guys. Everybody's here, it looks like. I see Amelia. Good to see you. We got Craig Green 9666. You might want to change that username. I mean, personally, it doesn't mean anything to me, but I hope, I think you can change it. Maybe try a different one. I don't know. You're always welcome here, though. It is a human number. The number of the beast. No. Okay, we got everybody. We got Cage Fighter. Good to see you, Cage Fighter. We got Sam Parker Fox. Welcome in, Sammy. Good to have you. We got Kathy32. Mika made it in. Good to see you. We also got Code, my friend. Code, welcome in. We got Blake Higgins as well. Did I say hi to you already, Amelia? Either way, honk honk. We got Ghost Hardware 198. Welcome in, my friend. We also got Pearl. Greetings, Pearl. Great to have you here with us as well. And we've also got Jillian Davis. Let's see. I'm going the wrong way. I've got to try to get to the bottom of the list, or it's going to do that thing where it just runs away. Let's see. Are we up to date? Oh, we got Aaron. Eyes for Truth. Good to see you, brother. So good to have you. We've also got Mama Khan. Welcome in, Mama Khan. Blessing to have you here with us tonight. And we do have some interesting things. We're kind of picking up where we Whoa, it did it. Well, I hope I didn't miss anything. Oh, we got Brother Bruce. We gotcha. The sore eyes for truth. Woo. That was a good one, Bruce. You had to be there. Good to see you, Sean C., my friend. Welcome in. And I think that we are... Oh, I gotta get... I'm fighting this thing. I'm wrangling this. The half-truths for CDM, my friend. Good to see you, brother. Glad to have you here as well. We've also got Angela O. in Texas. Welcome in. And Ceiling Fan Man, my man. Good to see ya. Let's go ahead and throw in one of these for my buddy. Yeah. What is it? This party bus is everywhere. Okay. Don't be a victim of top chat. Great point to make, Code. Hey, definitely don't miss out on the full chat experience. And I'm going to go ahead and slide on over to the duty station because we've got a couple of things we've got to cover tonight. How did I get so discombobulated? Because I wasn't getting ready. I was chatting. All right, let's see where we're at. I made a sincere mistake last week. I'm not trying to rate the app. And I made a big mistake that I want to apologize for. What's going on over here? The first thing is that I forgot to thank all of our supporters last week. So let's go ahead and stop at our first stop on the party bus, Chilltown, USA, population me. Now, we haven't yet uploaded our changed moderator indicator. Wendy was right. We need Shield of Faith. Let's go. The wrench is not a part of the armor of God. The wrench of restoration. We're adding it. It hangs on to the belt of truth. Okay, that's probably not appropriate. Look, I'm sorry I forgot you guys last week. It's not that I don't cherish you. It's just that I have a tendency to forget if I don't stick to the script here, I guess you could say. And, I guess I forgot to beg for money. I don't know. Woe is me. I forgot to beg for money. All right. But anyway, if you guys want to be a part of the support of this channel, you can find us over there on patreon.com/thecultofcon. And then if you don't want to sign up for that, you can also get us over on PayPal at thecultofcon@gmail.com. Thank you guys a lot for all that. Appreciate that. We get that part out of the way so that I don't forget. All right, let's check it out. Thumbnail rolling up. This is level 82. Beauty for Ashes. Black Gold. And we have some really cool stuff to talk about tonight. Just some cool factual stuff and some also kooky stuff that I've been cooking up. But it is a continuation of last week's episode. It's not really like a part 1 and 2, but we spent a whole lot of time talking about, dinos, dragons, all kinds of other interesting things. And I guess I'm going to have to get a little bit out of order here because I guess we could talk. We'll touch back on it later. I forgot something that I wanted to talk about last week, which I thought was pretty important to what we were doing. Let me see if I can find it. If I can find it really quick, I will totally pull it. Let's do it so we can get it out of the way. I don't even know exactly what all I wanted to say about this, but we wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of dragons and dinosaurs and all that. We got into that a little bit, but one thing I forgot to share with you guys that I kind of felt bad for because it's such like a big thing right now. This is the Book of Dragons by Edith Nesbit, which was published in 1987. And we were talking about the different kinds of dragons, the lore always expands to different kinds of dragons. And in this book, there's actually a story about a cat being a dragon. And we've talked about for some time, I probably could have done a whole thing about this, but here's some important facts for you to know. Cats, they have these like lizard slit type eyes. None of the big jungle cats have those. Like maybe just for reference, like I could pull something up. But literally like if you look up like big cats, jungle cats, they always have these round eyes. So like look at them. We might get a good look at them, but like, any cat that you pull up that's not like a house cat has like regular round pupils. The only cats that have the slit eyes are the house cats. So there's an ongoing theory that cats are in fact dragons, and I am not the only person to come up with this, and it's kind of been spoken about at length, but it's just something I forgot to share with you guys. If you're interested in picking up that book, that is, it's totally, you can get it on like Kindle for 99 cents. There's apparently a story in there about a cat that is a dragon. And apparently that's just something that we did not know. I guess it makes sense, right? They changed. They were like, they traded in their scales for soft fur. You know, they traded their fire breathing for their desire to eat lots of food. And now they're not really about sitting on treasure, but they like to sit on things that are important. A really warm computer tower or like a DVD player or whatever it is. That's their favorite thing. So they may not be breathing fire, but they're certainly seeking the warmth of it. Ask me how I know. Anyway, so we'll throw that so that's done, because I've got some serious stuff to talk about, and I'm just going to go right into it because it's crazy, and you guys know how I am. I can't stay out of trouble. So let's start with the juice. I will not name names, because I don't want to like directly create controversy. I'm trying not to be that way. So even though my name's in the word controversy, this is not the cult of controversy. At least not right now. Anyway, so let me share with you guys a little bit about what's been going on lately. So as some of you may have heard, there's been some drama in the, I guess you could say, expanded eschatological and or little season research community of late. The first of the two major dramas is that one creator who has a history of just kind of producing content relevant to old world research and, millennial kingdom stuff, Tartaria stuff, the vibe train, whatever. And this character has made quite a lot of contribution to this field of research. I have nothing negative to say about anybody in this topic of discussion. I just want to point out that this one character has been like dressing down a bunch of other creators in the scene because they think they're suspicious or ill repute or something like that. And I'm not here to make my opinion on that. It's just something that's going on right now that I'm sure you guys have heard about and are like trying to get to the bottom of yourself. And I think people obviously like pick a side. I'm a case-by-case person. I don't just be like, well, you're friends with them, so you're condemned. And there's certain like levels to this where it's like, I think most people, when referencing this person's complaints about other creators, I think most people would agree that what we're looking at here, sorry, my shock mount's all messed up. Anyway, I think most people would say that it's just like a cause for concern that people have. They're feeling maybe perhaps spiritually led to talk about people they think are not like the best leaders or witnesses or, whatever. I don't make the rules. I'm just saying that's been going on lately. People have felt for some reason compelled to change their tune from just making content that's relevant to their field of research, and now they're kind of like pointing fingers at other people. It's just something that's happening. I just thought I'd point that out. And so there's one creator who's done that about a few different people, and then there's another creator who did that about, I think, mostly an individual that we know. And I hate to not be able to say names, but I'm not trying to condemn anybody with this. I'm just trying to make a larger point, which I think is, in my opinion, it's more mature than what I would like to do. Because I'd love to just be like, yo, guys, you gotta check this out. Like, and I want to, because you know me. But just hear me out. I would rather let's try to be righteous about it. So this character is coming under fire. Different creator calling out another creator from our group, and it's a lot of it is centered around what this individual does for a living outside of their contribution to like eschatology research. And this particular person has a career that is kind of on the surface, kind of a little like sketchy anyway, if you're being honest, because it's like it's not inherently wrong, but it's kind of like an elective thing. It's not necessary. All things are lawful, but not all things are profitable. You ever heard that one? Anyway, I'm not saying that. I'm not here to judge anybody for sure. I'm definitely not trying to say that. But it goes a step further, because it goes from being like, if what is being spoken about is true, this thing that's not lawful, that's lawful but not profitable, I guess, this action, it may be actually more crooked and scary than we think. This person's career might actually be a little bit more dirty than we would have initially thought. But again, my commentary is not about this, okay? My commentary is not about people calling out other people, and maybe a little bit, but it's not about the specifics of it. Over the last year or so of making content on YouTube and trying my best to be a positive member of the community and try to just give to you guys every week when whatever ideas I have, for some reason you guys keep coming back. So maybe the Kool-Aid's got a little something in it. I don't know. But the point I want to make is just that I've learned over the last year or so that there's really nothing to gain from trying to attack other creators. You know, like trying to tear other people down because you disagree with their worldviews or their perspective on things. Making a whole video about somebody else just to kind of maybe get views for yourself or to try to be like, because I don't like the way they're. It's very petty. It's very, and I've seen some of the worst, like attacking people over their profile photo, attacking people because of their, you know, the channel vibe or whatever. And just really, it's really low hanging fruit. And I've always just thought, you know, that's not who I want to be as a character. Like, I'll call stuff out when I see it. Like, if I, like, you guys know about the whole scorched earth, and it's like, in that context, I wasn't just trying to pick a fight. Like, somebody started it, you know? And if no one's firing at me, I'm not going to get involved, but I will defend myself if I have to when people are, like, saying things about me, you know? But in this case, it's mostly just, it's a commentary on either. Like I said, a lot of people think that maybe these people are feeling compelled to warn others, to try to guide the herd, so to speak, to be good shepherds, I guess you could say. And maybe that's true. But I also think primarily, if I'm being honest, I think people are just running out of things to say. I think that we've been talking about old world research and eschatology stuff for a long time now. This is a decade-long thing on the internet at this point, and I think that it's like with anything else. People are looking for the next break. They want the next big thing. They want to know what's true and what's happening and where we're at. And so people are kind of, I think, stuck in a rut of kind of talking about the same stuff over and over again. And because of that, they're running out of things to say. So they're now becoming like petty and attacking each other. So on one hand, I would say it's more important that we understand that there are bigger fish to fry, right? Like in the case of this one creator calling out several others in the community, it's like, don't you have better things to do? And even if you don't have an answer to that, I have one, because you do. There are bigger fish to fry. If you're going to go make a video about something that's wrong or people that are leading the people astray, why don't we start with the head of the snake? Like, because you don't like that person's eschatology or that other person's, you know, doctrines and faith. And it's like, you don't have to agree with them. And you can even say, I'm right. My doctrine is supreme. It should be supreme. The truth should be imposed. Like, look who's talking. Like, I'm not telling you you're wrong for believing you're right. I'm just saying that as a creator, like, you kind of are supposed to contribute something, not just detract from someone else. And so I think that we should all try very hard to think about the fact, because I use this all the time to defend myself from other people. I am not the worst of anything that you accuse me of. There's a bigger fish out there. So if anybody has anything to come after me about, he's too brash and overbearing, there's like prisoners on the internet screaming about people being wood shepherd. I'm not the worst, you know? Find the big fish. Punch up. You know what I mean? Put your effort into fighting something big. That's what people want anyway. People want to see David take on Goliath instead of the other way around. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now the other part of the drama in the community, I just want to get out of the way, is this person who's being basically attacked for what they do for a living. I don't agree with it, and if the truth is as tantalizing as it seems about what the depths of this career really are, I mean, yikes, man, that doesn't sound good. But, you know, it's like anything else. I think the message I really want to send to you guys about that is, actually, let me tell you guys a story. Let's see where we're at. Okay. Career, right? This person does this thing for a living, and people are questioning them over it. They're questioning their legitimacy. They're questioning their commitment to Christ and the kingdom and like a life of righteousness and being a good witness, etc. And I think there's some validity there. And the reason I'll say that is because I left the best paying job I ever had. Now, it's not glorious. I'm not trying to be like, look at me, I'm so good. But think about it like this, right? Like, I've had a bunch of crappy jobs. I've always been kind of a slacker, you know, like a ne'er-do-well, trying to smoke weed or whatever, like never do the right thing kind of guy. And it took until I was saved to decide I wanted to do better with my life, right? And right at about that time that I was saved, the Lord gave me a job that I really needed. And it wasn't because, you know, I was expecting to become rich off of it or like get all my bills paid and set my life up. It was just that I was so desperate and low in my life and I needed like something. And I didn't know that it was going to be like a training experience for me, because those were some of the most difficult nights in my life, running around in the cold and doing what I was doing there. So I was working at the casino as a valet. And I remember every night before work, I'd sit there in the parking lot waiting for my shift. I worked the night shift, like 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. And I would sit there and listen to these teachings from Miles Monroe about the kingdom. And it was like leaning on God and the kingdom was the only thing that kept me going. I was at like absolute rock bottom. And after a while, I started to kind of get momentum, right? And this job was good. It paid really good. I'd make like $300-$400, maybe more per shift, because you get a paycheck, you get like hourly wage, and the tips were amazing. You know, you get like hundreds of dollars a day, which for me as a broke guy with no career, no options, you know, that was like way better than like what, Walmart, gas station. I was making like good money, and I was in a position where my expenses were so low. I'm talking, I was taking home quite a bit of money, and I had like no bills. I was stacking cash. I used to have a desk drawer that was tight packed with $1 bills. I had like $300-$400 a week or whatever, just in $1 bills. And I go to the bank, and they thought I was some kind of a stripper or something. They were like, they'd always look at me like, what is this? Some sort of counterfeiting operation? Is this guy somehow a thief? Like, where are you getting all these ones? And I just say, it's tips, you know. It shouldn't be that weird, but the amount was crazy because they'd see me coming back every couple of days with just hundreds of dollars in cash. It was a good job, paid a lot of money. But it was a casino. You know, some nights I wasn't running around grabbing cars and driving them out to the lot and running back. You put in many miles doing it. It's a good exercise. Cold, dark outside, but you're getting exercise, driving cars out and running back, running out to get cars and bringing them back. It was hard work, and it paid good, but it was a casino. And I remember so many nights, like I'd drive the shuttle sometimes, and guys would come out and get on the shuttle. I'm driving them out to the far reaches of the parking lot where they are, you know, their car's at or whatever. And they'd be like, oh, I lost $3,500 tonight, man. And like people would complain about or casually announce that they lost more money than I made all month just right now, just tonight, you know. And I was in a way kind of jealous, right? Because they're throwing away money. I had to bust my butt to get that kind of money, and they just throw it away like nothing. But then I also saw the tragedy of it, right? Because these are people in the throes of addiction. They're totally caught in vice. They're addicted to gambling. You know, not everybody shows up in a nice car. Some people show up in like a derelict car that smells like cat pee, and they go in there and spend all their money on gambling. And I saw this going on, and as I was developing my character, my conscience as a Christian through the Lord, obviously, and as the Lord was developing my character, let's put it like that, I started to feel like I couldn't do it anymore. Like I couldn't like justify in my heart working for people who sell vice to the world. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I can't be the kind of person who gets wealthy in his shoes. For me, it was wealth. For the proportion. Like how much do you trade your soul for, you know? So I just couldn't do it anymore. So I quit working there. You know, combination of life reasons, but really it was about the moral standpoint of like, dude, I can't do this. This is not the kingdom. This is the opposite of the kingdom. This is a place that sells struggle and misery into the lives of people who can't help themselves because they're so possessed by this. How is it any different than drugs or alcohol and it's just acceptable? It's a drug den that everybody thinks is fine. Tax exempt on the Native American reservation. What a disaster. So I quit working there, right? Because no job should be worth your conscience. You should never compromise the values that God is trying to instill in you for a job. We talked about this just a couple weeks ago. The root of all evil. Money is the root of all evil, the love of money. And so if we love money more than we love the Father, Jesus, the kingdom, then we'll be fine with it. We'll be fine. I'm just the car guy. All I do is park your car for you to make it easy for you to do drugs, to destroy your life. I'm not the dealer. I'm just the guy who moves the car. And it's like, those are excuses. And I'm not going to be a part of anything like that. So I decided, nope, I'm not going to use my energy to promote a system that harms people, that allows people to self-destruct because of this possessive addiction. And so when I look at like members of our community coming under fire for what they do for a living and like whether or not the reality is as dark as it seems, although it probably is because the clientele of this age is just not what it used to be. There's only it's probably like 3 out of 5 people are actually like insane and demon possessed and you're like helping them fall farther into darkness. I don't know. I feel like at some point maybe they're right. Like if what you do for a living is contributing to the downfall of other people directly and causing them to stumble, it's like that ain't a righteous way to live. And the reality is like you can leave your job. You don't have to work where you work. And I think that maybe people think that they do. They think that, well, if I don't, then how am I gonna? And it's like, I feel like the Lord will honor you for doing the right thing. Like, if you really believe in God and trust him, you say, God, I can't contribute to evil. I need you to get me a different job. We need to find something else, God. I can't do it anymore. And then maybe it's a deal. I can't tell you what the deal looks like, but maybe you commit to God. I'm going to start looking for a different job now. Please bless me to get a different job. So you don't just do something stupid. You don't just like jump off a cliff and say, well, God will save me. And then expect, you don't tempt the Lord. Don't do something dumb. Don't cause your kids to miss a meal. But literally, like, how many years can you go? How far is it worth the investment? Well, I've sunk all this money into the practice. I spent all this money on my degree. And it's like, the love of that stuff will be your downfall. It will destroy you. In fact, I think I have a Bible verse here that is relevant and should be shared with you guys tonight. Let's go ahead. We're looking at the book of Matthew, chapter 19, and we'll just start here because it's a great recap. Verse 16. Now behold, one came and said to him, Good teacher, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? So he said to him, Why do you call me good? No one is good but one, that is God. But if you want to enter into life, keep the commandments. He said to him, Which ones? Jesus said, You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, honor your father and mother, and love your neighbor as yourself. The young man said to him, All these things I have kept from my youth. What do I still lack? Jesus said to him, If you want to be perfect, go. Sell what you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. And come, follow me. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions, many things. And Jesus said to his disciples, Assuredly I say to you that it's hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And again I say to you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. Jesus tells us that it's real hard because you got something in the way. But when the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished, saying, Who then can be saved? But Jesus looked at them and said to them, With men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Then Peter answered and said to him, See, we have left all and followed you. Therefore, what shall we have? So Jesus said to them, Assuredly I say to you, that in the regeneration, when the Son of Man sits on the throne of his glory, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone, keyword everyone, everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold and inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and the last first. Now, the reason I think this passage is so important here is because God is telling us that it's worth it to leave behind things in this world for the good of the kingdom, your relationship with God, and even your impression on the world that God has blessed you with. You live in the world and people see you and do it and see what you do and what witness you have to offer. None of us are perfect. I'm not seeking expectation. I'm seeking people with a heart to do better, to change. And when we look at our own lives, we're talking about fish to fry, like what's really important. We should be looking inward at ourselves and say, what am I doing actively? What do I do every day that makes me the antithesis of God's plan for my life? And I can tell you that if you're like, I can't say it, I want to so bad. Oh, Holy Spirit, backspace. If your job is contributing to the destruction of people, if your job is contributing to the destruction of people, you need to find a new job in the Lord's name. That's about all. If you're struggling with people who don't like what you do for a living because they're honorably correct in the fact that you're contributing to the downfall of people, it's not about pleasing men. It's about realizing they're probably right. Find a new job. And then you can say, I left it behind. I left the best paying job I had for the kingdom. I didn't do it for rewards. But God says 100-fold. So just do it. It's not that hard. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're going to wonder where your next check comes from. You're going to wonder how you're going to make ends meet. What about that investment? What about that degree? It does not matter because it doesn't follow you into the kingdom. So don't be like the rich man who's got some sort of opportunity, some sort of money pile that is between him and what's the right thing for your life, what God's calling you to do. And then you don't have to like remove your website and make changes and put it back because you're ashamed of what you do. Don't be ashamed. Be proud. Be the same person every day, whether people can see you or not. And then that way you don't have to worry about what people are thinking about you. Let them talk, because God knows. And that's the reality. If you're innocent, God knows. And if you're guilty, God knows. And the only person who's going to be accountable for that is you in the kingdom. So keep that in mind. We don't have to choose money over righteousness. And anybody who tells you that is a liar. Anyway, that was a lot. I didn't mean to unload so much of that on you guys, but it's like, it's just not worth going to war over dumb stuff like, differences in eschatology. It's like we're all divided against each other while the world's being run by the big fish. And the big fish are, more exposed than ever in this decade, in this year. And I just think that we should all be really focusing on, if we're going to put our effort into something, it should be in the big fight, the good fight, not the petty squabble over garbage. All right. So let's move on. Tonight, we've got some really interesting stuff to talk about, and it actually also stems from the scriptures, so pretty cool, huh? It's like a crossover Sunday service episode. Check it out. So looking into, this is actually, I'm going to read you the whole thing because it's a great passage. Opening up the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, and beginning right there in verse 1, we're going to be reading, "The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good tidings to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to console those who mourn in Zion, to give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they may be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified. And they shall rebuild the old ruins, they shall raise up the former desolations, and they shall repair the ruined cities, the desolations of many generations. Strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the foreigner shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. But you shall be named the priests of the Lord, and they shall call you the servants of our God. You shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory you shall boast. Instead of your shame, you shall have double honor, and instead of confusion, they shall rejoice in their portion. Therefore, in their land they shall possess double. Everlasting joy shall be theirs. For I, the Lord, love justice. I hate robbery for burnt offering. I will direct their work in truth, and I will make with them an everlasting covenant. Their descendants shall be known among the Gentiles, and their offspring among the people. All who see them shall acknowledge them, that they are the posterity whom the Lord has blessed. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul shall be joyful in my God, for he has clothed me with the garments of salvation. He has covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decks himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorns herself with jewels. For as the earth brings forth its bud, as the garden causes the things that are sown in it to spring forth, so the Lord God will cause righteousness and praise to spring forth before all the nations." Woo, amen. Now, the reason this is so important, and we're talking about the idea here of this exchange, beauty for ashes. And what does that exactly mean? Obviously, in this context, there's a lot to unpack there, but it tells us we're talking about a people who have suffered, their cities in desolation, the ruins of the places that were once great. They're not a people in places of peace or prosperity. They're suffering, they're in darkness. But God is promising them through the prophet Isaiah here that they will exchange beauty for ashes. Now, we in English usually say what we have and we're trading first. You'd say like ashes for beauty, but this is an old piece of work here. And so we just need to understand the concept of an exchange, right? Something not good for something good. And there's a lot of ways you can look at this. In fact, there are discussions that we could break down about it, but like let's talk about what it means to trade beauty for ashes. There's a there's a song, and you guys might know it. It's a famous song. I'd love to play it because it's a beautiful song, and the ambiance of it is fantastic. But again, I'm just gonna have to set it. Oh, you know what? I have a somebody's crappy instrumental that I did find. I forgot about this, that I can play so you guys can appreciate it. And I'm just gonna read you guys some lyrics from this song. Now, this song is called "Wish You Were Here" by Pink Floyd, and it's really famous. I mean, if I played it, I'd get copyright, and it would probably like mess with the video. But let's talk about this, right? It says, "So you think you can tell heaven from hell, blue skies from pain? Can you tell a green field from a cold steel rail, a smile from a veil? Do you think you can tell? Did they get you to trade your heroes for ghosts? Hot ashes for trees? Hot air for a cool breeze? Cold comfort for change? Did you exchange a walk-on part in the war for a lead role in a cage?" Anyway, I think it's really poetic, right? When we look at our world now, especially those of us who understand that, like, Christ already returned in 70 AD and everything, I mean, those people saw it in real life. They saw beauty for ashes, especially when you think about, like, tribulation and everything taking place, right? It's pretty wild. And I think this concept of beauty for ashes is really impressive because when you think about it, right, the contrast is what makes it so beautiful, right? Jesus Christ died to give us life. And I think that's an amazing message. That right there, in and of itself, there's no better version of beauty for ashes. Death brings life. Christ giving up his life for us so that we can live. That's a beautiful message. But it goes deeper than this because we also have the understanding of the fact that you can trade something good for something bad. It isn't always about trading something that was, you know, a ripoff and getting something amazing, you know. We can't always replicate that kind of exchange where Jesus turns death into life or water into wine. You know what I mean? But we can look at this from our own perspective where there's a potential for an incredible pitfall in our lives. Like the ability that we have to screw everything up. I always think about the story of Ghost Rider, you know, Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider movie. I thought it was a pretty good movie. I always really liked that movie. And, you know, I think Nick Cage does a good job in that role. But hear me out, right? So he plays this character who, his dad's a stunt rider, and, you know, they've been basically running around doing stunts all of his life. He's watched his dad perform, and his dad gets sick. You know, he's got cancer, and he's getting falling apart. He's getting old. He's got cancer, and, you know, basically, Johnny Blaze, I think is his name. He makes a deal with, is that Human Torch? I can't remember. Anyway, I think Johnny Blaze is Human Torch. Maybe I'm wrong. Whatever. I don't save a lot of room for fiction these days in here. The point is that he makes a deal with the devil to save his dad, right? And it's like, oh, my dad will live. And his dad wakes up cancer-free, feeling good, you know? So his dad tries a super crazy stunt ride and dies on the stunt ride. And it's like, now he sold his soul to Satan so that he has to be the Ghost Rider to try to give his dad a second chance at life. And you know what? The devil gave him another chance. But you didn't say anything about him surviving every stunt from now on. And so the devil kind of ripped off Mr. Ghost Rider there. And that's a perfect example of beauty for ashes, right? Your head's a flaming skull. You do the will of Satan now. It's not the way to be. So obviously, you don't want to end up like that. But then, of course, there's, like we talked about, the real deal, right? You give up your desolate, dying, filthy old man, and you take on a new purpose in life, a new identity in Christ. And you get the ashes of everything that you ever did wrong, the mistakes you made, all this stuff that torched any plans you ever had, all this stuff that failed you. It's all ashes. It's all dust. It's all in the past. It's not coming back. But God says, here's something else you can trade for that. You can trade that failed identity, that person that wasn't going anywhere, that had no real reason to be here, and you can exchange those ashes for something beautiful. the identity that God has for you in the kingdom in Christ. And I think that there's nothing more beautiful than that in reality. I think that's the essence of beauty for ashes. Even as it's spoken about in the passage in Isaiah, beauty for ashes, it's about the exchange that God promises his people will experience in his kingdom and through his great work in the world. That's an amazing thing. I never want to forget that. We should always remember that. So let's dig into it. On the topic of beauty for ashes, let's see where we're at here. I got something for you guys. So we're going to start talking about beauty for ashes. What happens when you trade ashes for beauty? Let's check it out. Where's my volume? So this is making diamonds.
This is Eterniva, a company that specializes in making lab-grown diamonds using human ashes sent in by loved ones. Once the ashes arrive at their lab, they go through a carbon purification process to extract the carbon from the other elements present. A diamond seed is then added, along with some other elements, depending on what color the client wants the diamond to be. Once all done, it is placed inside a machine that mimics the pressure and heat conditions under the Earth's crust. Once the raw diamond has been inspected, it's cut into the shape to the request of the client.
Wow, so they do a great job of making that not seem creepy. Oh, I'm just walking around with my dead grandma and a ring on my hand, you know. He's definitely something weird being passed off as totally chill. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's like having your late relative like ashes in a desk drawer and they're still there, they've been there for years. I don't know, is that weird? In a little urn on top of the thing? I don't know, man. For me, it's always been a strong separation of the body and spirit for me. My understanding has always been that we are spiritual beings living a physical experience. And so when I see bodies, ashes, whatever, I'm like, can we get rid of that? Can that go outside? Like, but I think that's great, right? So this is what they're marketing, beauty for ashes, right? You send your dead grandma over or whatever, and then they get turned into a diamond. And look, I'm not judging you if you've done that. That's a little spooky. But, to each their own. There's different ways we choose to cope with loss in this life. And I'm not telling anybody they should be glad that people are dead. I know that people who are very kingdom-oriented are celebrating. They're in the kingdom. So it's kind of like, it's hard to feel sorry for them. I think we feel sorry for ourselves because it's like, dang it, they're gone. And especially when they're really, great people of God that go. I was watching videos from this guy recently. He's an old man. He's an old pastor. I don't even remember his name at the moment, but I was really enjoying what he was saying, and I went to look him up and see if he was like doing things, if he had a certain ministry, and he passed away in like 2022, and it's just like, well, there he went, good man of God. I really liked what he was saying, but what can you do? He went back to be with the Lord. Obviously God judges that, but one can hope, we trust that when people say they're committed to the kingdom and God, that's what they mean. And only the Lord knows that for sure. But when those people go, we're supposed to be glad in a way that they got to go back. But yeah, so they're talking about it, right? The idea of trading beauty for ashes, turning your cremated loved ones into diamonds that you can wear as jewelry. Very interesting. But I think one thing that was really, interesting to me about this process is the fact that they're making diamonds by taking basically high density carbon. The part they talked about, the diamond seed, it's just really pure carbon. And that's like the basis for which they grow the diamond, right? It's this really pure, like, I guess it's a super compacted pressure. And it's just interesting to me because you can take this element, this carbon, of which all living things are made of, and you can compress it and heat it, and it becomes a crystalline gemstone. I think that's a very interesting and cool process. Whether or not it's creepy is kind of a different thing, but just scientifically, just the idea that can happen, that an organic living thing can be pressed, compressed, heated, and will change form, especially over time. I think it takes time naturally, like under the ground, for diamonds to form. But they're making them in laboratories relatively quick. I imagine you put in an order and it shows up before too long. And I'm sure there's all kinds of like questions about like, how do you know that's really your relative? And I guess that's probably a talk for another time. Like, is it a conspiracy? I don't know. Probably. I don't trust anything nowadays. But yeah, so I've been thinking about this ash and this carbon and stuff. Like, it's all in my mind right now because I know that when they say something is organic, it means it's carbon-based. It doesn't even necessarily mean that it's like not GMO. Organic actually means carbon-based, which everything is. So if you see organic listed on a product, it's like $6 more or whatever, don't be convinced that it's automatically better just because they write, well, you know, it's made of stuff. Yeah, that doesn't really tell us anything. You have to know that that's like actual certified organic. If you're worried about that stuff, I say don't fear corn, right? Fear God, not corn. I'm not worried about the corn. But you know, if you've got like a condition, you got to follow your convictions, okay? Anyway, so I'm thinking about this, right? A couple weeks ago, I was working on Bam-A-Lam, you know, my project car, and I was trying to get the intake rebuilt, and one of those processes was removing the exhaust gas recirculation valve, which is like this system that basically like feeds the exhaust from the engine back into the engine to burn it again so that it burns it more, so that none of the soot's like escaping into the atmosphere. There's this like funny mechanic thing, and like pardon my French here, but every like mechanic knows when it comes to the exhaust gas recirculation, they say, do I have it? I actually have an AI description of what it says. They always say, well, the problem is nothing was designed to eat its own shit. It's like, AI says, the sentiment that engines were not designed to eat their own shit is a common, well-understood complaint among mechanics and car enthusiasts, particularly concerning diesel engines and their exhaust gas recirculation systems. Well, the technical purpose of the EGR system is to reduce nitrogen oxide emissions. The practical reality often results in carbon buildup, sludge, and reduced engine longevity. So I cleaned all that out. Like, I literally had like a slug of black soot inside that car. The intake was totally caked with it. 25 years of idling outside of every potential real estate deal or whatever was going on with the person who had this car before me. It was gummed up. And so I was cleaning all that out and busting all that out and realizing, you know what it is? It's burnt fossil fuel, right? Like, for lack of a better word, right? Follow me on this. Fossil fuel, in this case, $4.70 premium gasoline or whatever. It burns. And even though it's liquid, right? It's a liquid. It's really pure if it's well, like I was purging the fuel system because I put in a new pump the other day. And what was coming through the straw, perfectly clear, beautiful liquid. I mean, it's really quite amazing that we're out here refining this sludge into that and using that to drive around. Really impressive. But the point I'm trying to make is that stuff reduces to carbon as well. Everything does, right? When you burn logs in the fireplace, it turns to that ash, that white powdery ash when it's really cooked all the way. Or like if you burn anything, the chimney gets soot covered in creosote and like this buildup of ash and carbon, and it's like you can scrape anything that has fire blasting through it. You can find carbon on everything. And that's because, as we said, organic means carbon-based. Everything here in the world that we know of has carbon as a molecular base structure. And so everything can be reduced to carbon at some point, including people, apparently, as we've seen them turning them into dang diamonds. And so it's very interesting because you can get, you know, naturally occurring diamonds, and then you can get these manufactured ones. And manufacturing diamonds obviously goes back quite a ways in history. I may not have the data on it right now, but they started manufacturing cubic zirconia in like the late 1800s. Like, they discovered solids that were effectively what they call zirconia, and there's obviously like a grade scale from like 1 to 5A zirconia, but it's effectively a very commonly used diamond simulation, or a substitute for a diamond that in the past might have been like a deceit, like, oh, you got sold cubic zirconia instead of like an actual diamond. But at the end of the day, that's kind of not the case, because they don't have the same shine level, and there's differences in the molecular structure that once you're like a jeweler, you would know. I'm not a jeweler, but I'm just saying, like, knowing from the scientific perspective, I can see why there's like a shininess that is too brilliant. Cubic zirconia is actually more brilliant in its shine than diamond. So you could tell just by that, the spectrum of light that reflects out of it is different. And I'm not the master, but I bet my guy Richard knows all about this stuff, because, you know, and it's not because of his Jewish ancestry. It's because of his jewelry history. Anyway, so very interesting stuff. And it's just funny to me that, like, we have been making fake diamonds this whole time, but also we still think that the ones in the ground are incredibly valuable. And I know that it's because the ones that are naturally occurring are, you know, they're particularly ancient, and it's kind of mysterious because they exist in nature. And so we're like, oh, this is a special diamond, even though we technically can make better ones in a lab. If we're talking about, well, it's even more shiny, it's even more perfect, we can make them really cheap. You'd think we'd all just be wearing cubic zirconia everything and not wasting time and risking diamonds. But I get it, there's other things, right? Like one of them is a thermal conductor. A diamond is a thermal conductor, or I'm sorry, I think diamond's a thermal insulator and zirconia is a thermal conductor. So it's like one of them stops heat and one of them transfers it. So that's kind of that matters if you're thinking about the properties of this substance, but that's beside the point, really. I'm just trying to bring up the idea that there are carbon-based things in the world. Diamond is like the purest hard carbon crystal, but everything in the world is basically made of the same thing. And when you break it down to its most root form, it is basically dust, right? And if we look at the book of Genesis, in chapter 3, verse 19, it says, and this is regarding the curse of mankind, right? Chapter 3, verse 19. So the temptation, the fall of man, they did the unforgivable, you know, they committed the sin, they brought darkness into the world. And ultimately God was like, because you've done this, you're going to suffer, curses the ground for your sake, la, la, la. And then we get to 19 and he says, in the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you shall return. And I think that that's really amazing because we're talking about something biblical that is written kind of as this metaphoric, like God formed Adam from the dust of the earth. It says that. And we think about that and we kind of just blow by it. Like, oh, well, he made him out of clay and like mashed him together like a statue. And it's like, no, we don't understand. God wove a living being out of a complex system of molecular structures. There's a base molecule. He made humanity out of what was just dust, ash. And then there was life where there was none. Beauty for ashes. It's an incredible reality. To realize that this is a scientific explanation of what God has done in his infinite wisdom and creativity. He took this like void thing of nothing, it's like a black dust rock, and then he created everything out of this. Because we talk about he formed Adam out of the dust of the earth, but he also made all the animals and all the birds and the fish and everything in the oceans and everything. And all of that stuff, if you put it on a fire and burn it down, dude, it's ash, it's dust. For out of it you were taken, as for dust you are, and to dust you shall return. That is super crazy. I mean, it's not anything we haven't heard, but just thinking about it from the perspective that it's like, you are carbon dust. God made you out of carbon dust, and to carbon dust you shall return, right? It's super crazy. Beauty for ashes. All right, so I got one for you guys. We're going to continue down the pipe here. We're looking here then at something you guys have seen before, definitely not anything new, but something I want to kind of put a different spin on for you guys. So we're talking about what here is referred to as...
Are mountains the remains of ancient giant trees?
Mesas.
We're told mountains formed through millions of years of tectonic activity. But what if that's not the whole story? What if they aren't mountains at all, but the remains of something far greater?
Part 2 for you, folks.
Oh, that's not what I
Are
meant.
mountains the remains of ancient
sorry, guys.
giant trees?
I did not mean to start it over.
We're told mountains formed through millions of years of tectonic activity. But what if that's not the whole story? What if they aren't mountains at all, but the remains of something far greater? Well, you see, some believe that mountains are actually the petrified stumps of ancient, impossibly large trees. Trees that once towered miles into the sky, forming a prehistoric world of unimaginable scale. Look closely at certain mountains like Devil's Tower in Wyoming, and you'll see perfect hexagonal patterns resembling the cellular structure of trees. And here's where it gets even stranger. Ancient myths and religious texts speak of a time when the earth was covered with enormous trees, later felled by unknown forces. Could these be fossilized remnants of a forgotten world? Were they destroyed in a global catastrophe? Because if it really is true, then are mountains
All
the
right,
remain?
now it's played 3 times. Okay. You guys are following, right? The mystery of the mesas. Are the mountains and mesas giant trees? Now, I'm not going into a giant diatribe about mesas, other than to say that this is something that we've touched on before on this channel, and many people have talked about this in the community. I'm going to follow this up with some supporting details that you guys have probably seen before. I think this video was even played recently on JT Follows JC, so shout out to him. He might have been on with Brian, Demon Erasers, but I can't remember the conversation they were having, but they talked about this in this video played, and I'm just going to share with you guys a little bit of this, right? This is from Kent Hovind.
On for things to petrify. Here's petrified firewood. The guy chopped on it before it turned to stone. Here's mummified dog stuck in a tree. Turned to stone. They chased a coon up the tree, apparently, and got stuck. They named it Stucky. What would you call it, okay? Here's petrified cowboy boot with the cowboy's legs still in it. The boot was made 1950, and the leg is turned to stone. Here's petrified fish giving birth. It does not take millions of years to give birth. Praise God, okay? Here's a petrified hat. Petrified pickle found in a jar. The guy sent me the jar and pickle. He said, Brother Hovind, I found this in Montana in an old home. The house was junk. The roof was gone. The house was falling apart. But he said, you want a petrified pickle for your museum? I said, of course. Who in their right mind would not want a petrified pickle, you know? Come on down to Pensacola, Dinosaur Adventureland, and see the petrified pickle. Here's petrified sacks of flour found in a flour mill that flooded in 1910 in Eureka Springs, Arkansas.
Fascinating.
Here's petrified toadstool. There's an amazing gem and mineral museum just south of Bloomington, Illinois, in the little bitty tiny town called Shirley, Illinois. You got to be trying to find it to get there, but it's worth going to see the Funk Gem and Mineral Museum. Okay, here's petrified acorns. This kid sent them to me. He said, Brother Hovind, I was 7 years old at the time. He said, I stuck these acorns in a bucket of water, and I thought they might, sprout and make some trees, and I forgot about them. Next spring, my mama found the bucket on the back porch, and the acorns had turned to stone. He said, would you like them for your museum? I said, of course. Come on down and see the petrified acorns. More on petrification.
Okay. All right. So, mainly what I want to address regarding that supporting evidence is just that it doesn't take millions of years for things to petrify. So when we look at like mesas and giant trees, we need to understand that it's not necessarily something that took place over a great deal of time. It's something that may have happened in relatively short order. We're talking about maybe a few decades maybe, or even like a year, according to those acorns that sat outside for a year and petrified, I guess. So what we need to know is that it's not impossible that those mesas could in fact be tree stumps. And I think that that's really important that we understand that that's a possibility. But then I have to ask this question that's really pressing me. If mesas are giant trees and they're just the stumps of the trees, where did the rest of the tree go? Now, I know this is not something that can't be answered. We already know that there's biblical evidence to support that the giant trees were cut down by the angels at the command of God prior to the flood. And if it's anything like what we know about the lore and literature, like you see in stuff like James Cameron's Avatar movie, these giant trees would have served as habitats for entire civilizations, massive amounts of wildlife. We're talking about something so big that it would potentially represent millions of tons of material, millions of gallons of tree sap, and wood in the millions of tons of wood. Like, an almost inexplicable thing in our current world. Like, we have a hard time rationalizing that it's possible that there's a tree that big. Nevertheless, if this is indeed a tree stump, with the crystalline structure that looks like wood cellulose. That's the even more, it's like the cell structure of wood is this kind of crystalline structure that these petrify into. Then the question is pressed. It begs the question, where did the rest of the tree go? Now, if we can understand that the angels came and chopped it down, that's not too hard to understand. But my question is, what happened to the sheer quantity of wood and leaves and or pine needles, whatever, tree stuff, and sap and stuff? We're talking about so much volume. Now, we understand that the flood, God's biblical flood, would have totally trashed the world, and it would have created like a blender of rocks and dirt and everything. And so I can imagine like large tree pieces would have been broken up anyway, just by the forces they were subjected to. Even a giant log is still going to be buoyant, assumably. And really, it doesn't matter how much stuff weighs. Water just moves stuff around. If you guys know anything about the power of the ocean, think about the whole world in an oceanic turmoil. I can imagine that you know, and obviously no mountains. This covered the highest peaks of the world. There was massive swirling going on and blending. So it's not to say that the material just disappeared or that we should be searching to find a gigantic log buried underground, which is not out of the realm of possibility either. But what we actually have to come to terms with is the fact that these giant trees would have undoubtedly created massive subterranean vaults of decomposing plant material, right? So we're talking about millions of tons of wood and millions of gallons of various pitches, saps, and resins. And we don't exactly know what kind of species these trees would have been. I can imagine they probably would have been similar or comparable to what we have today, albeit a more advanced or more like longevity-focused species, like a transcendent version of the trees we have today. Just like you might have seen people living 900 years in the old world, it's the same kind of thing. The pre-flood world was a different place. And there's a lot of theories about why or how that was possible. But ultimately what I'm getting at is that it was a different place, and that different place had giant trees that are no longer there. Now, what we have left are these massive stumps. And so when we look at, this is an article talking about oil shale and versus regular oil, like conventional oil. This is just a drawing that's an indication that shows. And there's a write-up we can read about oil shale and stuff. We can talk more about it. But just for the sake of understanding, shale is a fine-grained sedimentary rock composed of mud containing clays and silt-sized particles of other minerals. Some shale can also contain significant amounts, 5% or more, of organic matter. The fossil remains of protozoans, microscopic animals, or plants, called kerogen. When kerogen-bearing shale is buried deeply enough and for millions of years, the natural heat and pressure of the earth can convert the kerogen to oil and or gas. However, in Utah's oil shale deposits, much of the kerogen-bearing rock is close to the surface and therefore has not yet generated hydrocarbons. Now, we're not talking about the state of Arizona or of Utah. I don't know why I said Arizona. I think people were talking about Arizona in chat. But we're talking about a scientific, simple understanding that these sedimentary rocks can contain organic biodegrading material that will potentially be converted to oil and gas. And so that's a big one, because it speaks to basically what I'm indicating here, right? So we have these massive world trees, incredible, enormous deposits of naturally occurring biodegradable organic carbon-based material buried beneath the earth, exposed to not only the pressure from the sediment of billions of tons of rock and dirt, which would have settled on top of much of this plant material, some of it being blended into a mulch that soaked into this sedimentary shale. It was basically like pressed together into the shale. So you have these rocks that have oil inside them. Very impressive thing to think about. So let's look then, how does this happen, right? How do you get the heat, right? Because we always talk about volcanic and subterranean faults and things like that. But how could we consistently expect to find converted kerogens made into oils? How could we expect that trees would be turned into oil in any capacity? Well, let me introduce you guys to something you may have heard of before, but this is actually a real thing. It's not a joke. This is spontaneous combustion.
Can something just burst into flames all by itself? Spontaneous combustion sounds like science fiction, but it's real, at least in certain cases. It happens when materials generate enough heat internally to ignite without an external flame or spark. For example, oily rags can slowly oxidize, producing heat. If the heat can't escape, the temperature rises until ignition. Haystacks, coal piles, and even compost heaps can catch fire this way. As for the idea of humans suddenly bursting into flames, there's no solid scientific evidence.
So yes, spontaneous combustion can happen, but only under specific conditions involving heat buildup, fuel, and oxygen. Myth for people, truth for chemistry. Follow for more fiery facts.
Okay, there you go. Spontaneous combustion. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever been to the places that deal in like bark chips, topsoil, mulch, compost. Those guys have to take the tractor out periodically and stir the pile. Because even a 15, 20-foot tall pile of this decomposing earth and material is undergoing a process known as microbial decomposition. And as these things, such as even the oily rags, which were oxidating, it would probably depend on the material that the rags were made of, although plastics are based on petroleum chemicals, which means that they may very well be based on an organically occurring substance derived from an organically occurring deposit, like a tree. And so that could potentially be biodegrading, but the point I'm trying to make is you get a heap of like mulch or bark dust and you let it sit there, even on a non-sunny day, that stuff can totally catch on fire. It's a thing that's been going, I mean, people have been piling up material for thousands of years and it will catch on fire if it's not tended to properly. So we understand that it's possible for microbial decomposition to create a fire. And there's more to say about that. But let's talk about the idea then that these massive subterranean vaults are full of decomposing, mulched plant material to the amount of, literally, I'm talking millions of tons of material, like more tree than you've ever seen, blended by the storm, blended by the flood, and then compressed beneath the earth. So we have the element of pressure just inherently by the fact that it's buried under billions of tons of rock and dirt. But then we wonder, where do we get the heat, right? Because we need sufficient heat to convert this kerogen into oil. So we have the plant material, we have the pressure required, but we need the heat. Well, luckily for us, we understand that microbial decomposition will generate heat, such as to create a fire, spontaneous combustion, if exposed to the proper amount of oxygen. Now, a giant subterranean vault of a giant pool, right, of subterranean tree sap, or a giant cluster of what will eventually become a coal mine, a giant log rotting underground that's not only pressurized but it's hot. That is how you create naturally occurring oils: coal, oil, shale containing oil. And so there's a reality here. Something that I didn't think about, but obviously it makes sense. The devil never creates anything new. He only just manipulates what's already there. He finds a way to distort the interpretation of what's actually real and true. We've been told all of our lives, fossil fuels. And last week we spent like the whole 2 hours talking about dino juice and how dinos have been converted into juice to control us. And the fossil fuel industry is nothing but monetization of what should be free energy. And they're telling us it's fossil fuels because it's made from melted dinosaurs. Now, I raise my counter argument that I believe the subterranean vaults of oil and coal and other flammable fuel, gas, etc., I think that stuff was created by the world trees. I believe that when the world trees collapsed to the ground and were flooded, buried, and compressed beneath the surface of the earth, that they were converted into these subterranean substances. Which means that not only did they not exist in the pre-flood world, but they've been down there for several thousands of years waiting to be tapped by mankind. Whether that was some kind of a foresight or like an intentional plan from God or just a consequence of the way that the system works. But the reality of it is, it makes way more sense that you can believe them. These could literally be fossil fuels. But the fossil in question is not a magic, mystical, dino, give all your money to the university system. It's actually something they won't even talk about, which is that the pre-flood world was covered in massive trees, massive collections of organic material that were cut down and lost to the sands of time. And if you ask me, I would say that's where all that oil comes from. So when you're looking at the premium gas, putting the carbon buildup inside the intake on Bama. I'm looking at something that's very different than what I've been taught about. It's very different to see gasoline and think this is a refined version of the crude oil they suck out of the ground. They started doing that in like the 1800s of all times. The mid 1800s, they started grabbing these giant rigs and setting them up so that they could bore down into the vat of oils. They could start sucking it out of there. And then they were like, well, what can we use it for? I mean, they created oil engines and they use it as lubrication. In fact, there's more to unpack about that even, but this oil can be converted into kerosene and other flammable, combustible materials that can be used to harness the energy of its explosive potential. In fact, we all drive cars around not even thinking about it. We use power, electricity that is derived from plants that burn coal. Some good amount of our power is generated through coal burning. So you got giant, rotting, and you guys know, charcoal is just wood. Charcoal that you put in your barbecue, that's wood that they put under pressure and heat. They burn it and they press it. It becomes a briquette. Now take that and separate yourself from the mechanical, synthetic version we make in a factory, and imagine you had a giant pile of wood buried underground being cooked under pressure, just like the charcoal factory, only it does it for hundreds or thousands of years. It's the slow cook. It's like that 24-hour pork or whatever. It's like buried underground and cooking for a long time. So you get that real rich, deep, almost wet kind of coal that actually works as a legitimate, long-burning, high-producing fuel source. Of course, as it burns, it fills the atmosphere with deadly chemicals, which is literally what the world's made of. Believe that. They literally think that it's bad for the environment, and it's like trees literally love carbon. We exhale carbon. Yes, you're going to say, well, the molecule, carbon dioxide is 1 part carbon. And so it's CO2. It's carbon and oxygen. So you have carbon mixed with oxygen. What happens if you pull carbon away from oxygen? O2? Wait a minute, we breathe that. And trees actually do a great job of scrubbing the carbon from the oxygen. We always think, trees produce air. They don't produce air. They're like filter brushes. The carbon and oxygen molecule structure forms together. As we breathe oxygen, carbon binds with the oxygen. We exhale carbon dioxide. The CO2 goes into the atmosphere. The plants absorb it through their processes, and they just take the carbon away. You know why? Because they love carbon, because they're made of carbon. They eat it. And then they leave us clean O2. See how it's all connected? The tree has been collecting carbon its entire life, and when you burn it, it becomes carbon again, ash. And apparently, if you burn it underground under pressure, you can get the plant material, the saps, the resins, the moisture of the wood, the compact, pressurized material, organic material, kerogen, and that heat and pressure can turn it into oil. That's amazing. We've been doing kind of a back and forth between synthetic procedures and natural procedures to kind of understand how the scope of all this is. And we talked about, synthetic lubrication, right? Obviously, as you guys know, there are different kinds of engine oils that you put in your car. You can have a conventional blend or you can have a synthetic. And really the difference is that the conventional blend is closer to the original thing. It's a refined version of crude oil, reducing the impurities that are present, but allowing it to have its natural lubricating properties. So it has kind of an unstable molecular structure. It's kind of not as perfect as the synthetics. Now, that isn't to say that God's way is wrong. It's just that we have this power, this creative ability that God gave us to take what's here and to make it into something else, right? You have a forest full of trees and we turn it into a log cabin. And then to go a step further, we turn logs into all kinds of tools and we burn the wood to power all kinds of systems. And there's a lot to unpack there. And I don't think it's inherently wrong for us to build on top of what God has given to us that's available to us. But just understanding that concept, synthetic oil is effectively refined conventional oil that then has extraction and introduction of different chemicals and agents and detergents and things that make it work to a different extent, to a different capacity as conventional, and they're different for different things. If you have an old truck, you don't need synthetic oil in there because the old truck doesn't care that much. But maybe you have something new with really low tolerances on the crank or cams that only allow a certain type of oil density to allow those rotating assemblies to slide across their bearing surfaces. There's a lot of science involved in this. And so we've been messing with and producing oils for years. And I actually want to share with you guys, when we're talking about the manufacturing of oil. We've talked about the implications that the earth has turned the world trees into oil, but we also create oils all the time by heat and pressure of naturally occurring substances. In this case, we're looking at, this is the pressing of soybean oil. Let me try to float this thing again. It's a very interesting process. So this is a giant mechanical press, and that is all pulp, soybean pulp. And by squeezing it, they're extracting an enormous amount of essentially raw soybean oil. It needs to be, I think it goes through a process. They like cook it, they heat it up, they do other things to it, trust me. But essentially you can make oil from just about any living thing. The reason why soybeans are such a good example is because soybeans are a plant. And this is not, we're not limited to this. We've got corn oil, we've got olive oil, we've got avocado oil, we've got coconut oil. The sky's the limit. If you take something that is a living plant and you crush that thing, juice comes out. And let me tell you, we call it oil. There's a lot of different ways you can extract it. Closed loop, you can use solvents, you can use obviously heat and pressure, which is probably the most natural and the most clean way to extract oils. But evidently, to make oil, the two main recipes you need are a plant material substance, heat, and pressure. So I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to something that seems very conclusive, which is that the world trees, the giant trees, are literally about, inexplicably large. And then because they're cut down, all that material had to go somewhere. And it is my firm belief at this point that that stuff is pressed underground, cooked, and transferred into the fossil fuels of today. So are they technically fossil fuels? Yes. And that's where the satanic deception comes in, because yes, they're made by a fossilized material, but they're talking about plants. They're not talking about some dinos. And of course, they'll tell you it's dinosaur bodies, but people need to understand that how is it possible, right? Let's talk about the explanation. If you took all the dinos that ever lived in history, of course, they make a very large window of history, several 100 million years, as we discussed. That would obviously justify some large number of dinosaurs, but you have to think, they say all the dinosaurs died in kind of a sudden time. That's the only way that you could have all the dinosaurs compacted and pressed beneath the surface to become the oil that they said they became. And in that case, that's ridiculous, because there would have had to have been so many dinosaurs on the earth that like hundreds of millions and millions and millions of tons of dinosaur bodies. Like I'm talking about, it's harder to imagine that many dinosaurs than it is to imagine mountain-sized trees. And they're still there. There's proof of mountain-sized trees. I have not. You'd think if there was enough dinosaurs to create the amount of oil, coal, and otherwise natural gas that's produced beneath the earth from their supposed bodies, you would think that every time you dug up your yard, you'd find dinosaur bones, because the sheer quantity of dinosaurs required. And they would say, well, their bodies were spaced out over the course of millions of years. Well, then why are there not millions of years worth of dinosaurs in my yard, where no matter where I dig, I find dino bones? Because there's so many that they're responsible for all the world's oil and gas supply that we have been collectively burning already for 150 years and still pump out by the millions of gallons every single day. It's not adding up. The only way that you would have that much substance is because you had literally landmass sized trees, like trees that are so significant that they were literally filling the earth. And that's the reason why there's so much substance of their remnant still deep beneath the surface of the earth, available for us today to do with it whatever we need to. And I think that's just so compelling. Spontaneous combustion. They say that modern commercial oil drilling began in 1859, so I was close. And that's the first time they started literally pumping it out, the mid-1800s. And you guys know that the 1800s is an incredibly sus period of history, especially in the United States, with the World's Fairs, the Civil War, the Great Reset, so to speak, and everything that went on during that time. Very mysterious and interesting time, but nevertheless, it's when they introduced to us this concept of subterranean fossil fuels. And it's right along the timeline that we talked about last week with the introduction of dinosaurs, when they started trying to explain everything that didn't make sense to these people who had lost consciousness. They didn't know what was going on with the world. Walking around in the empty, massive palatial cities they called the World's Fair and being like, well, this building's permanent, but those ones are paper mache. I know you can't tell the difference and the pictures are all the same, but just know those ones we got rid of, that 30-acre building, we got rid of that because it was crap. It was paper mache. It wasn't set. It wasn't going to last. You know what I'm saying? So, speaking about oil, though, I had one little video I wanted to share with you guys because it's just funny. It takes me back.
It's recording now.
All right. So this is to see what I sound like with an accent, without an accent. Am I starting with an accent first?
Yeah.
Like just talking normal.
Just
right?
talking normal. Just
the dog licked the oil and everyone laughed.
Okay, now say it without an accent.
The dog licked the
oil.
You didn't even want to say
Not oil. It's oil. Do over.
All right. The dog licked the oil and everyone laughed.
Now say it in your southern accent
The
again.
dog licked the oil and everybody laughed.
The dog licked the oil. I've just always appreciated that video. Whenever I think about oil, whenever they're talking about oil, I just think the dog licked the oil. He's like having such a hard time saying it. It's so funny. When oil came up, he froze because he's like, "You mean oil?" I know some of you guys are from over there, and it's like, I'm not judging. I just think that's funny. When you really think about it, like, oh, here I am on the West Coast. Every word I say is like that. I don't even realize it. I'm out here saying, well, the dog licked the oil. Oh, that's so funny. I love it. Dialects are hilarious. But yeah, that meme stuck with me. That video is from like 12 years ago. It's just classic. All right, so we've got more. It's not over. We've got a little bit more here. Here we go. So, calderas and volcanoes. So as you guys know, the video that we saw, that we watched earlier about, it was this one here. The mesas. The mountains are giant trees. I think that there's more to unpack about the concept of mountains being giant trees, because I think we look at like mesas specifically because they're very indicative of a tree stump, and we're pretty convinced that's what those are. But we don't often consider the idea that other mountains that we recognize could in fact still also be giant trees. We don't really think about it very much, especially when they're more blobby and kind of rubbly, and we don't really think about the fact that perhaps it was also a giant tree stump at some point in history before something befell this statue or a structure and it collapsed under the weight, or potentially was pulverized, or if it exploded. It's like we have this massive subterranean amount of material, like for all we know, like millions of gallons of sap, pitch, whatever, pooled up underneath the mountain. And in that process of the biodegrading of the pitch and sap and wood material, that microbial decomposition that we talked about, for all we know, there is access to, a proper amount of oxygen, right? And let's think about the idea that an incredible subterranean heat pile building up underneath one of these tree stumps, so to speak, as it's decomposing with nowhere else to go, finally makes contact with a pocket of oxygen in a subterranean vault. A cave system, a network, a crack in the earth. And that entire superheated vault of decomposing material, we're talking about potentially hundreds, thousands, millions of gallons of a crude sludge decomposing plant material and resins, catches fire and explodes. Okay, because it totally will. It's under pressure, and it has heat enough to create combustion, and all we're missing is oxygen. We talked about that. Well, if it can't get any air, it just stays down there cooking like a big vat. But what happens if it reaches some sort of fault, a crack in the Earth's surface, or a crack in the mountainside that delivers some kind of an incredible explosion? And it would be totally par for the course, right? Not only does it explode with incredible force, but because there's so much of this flammable, semi-liquid, semi-solid substance, that it could very well incinerate. Like, it could burst into flames, creating like effectively lava flows, right? We're talking about superheated plant material, adding tons of oxygen. I know you guys know, like, if you do turbo to a stove, if you add air to a fire, it gets really hot. So if this whole thing catches oxygen, the oxygen rips into the vault, The vault explodes, instantly making contact with even more oxygen. You could potentially see like a Mount St. Helens kind of a situation happen right before your very eyes. And growing up in the Northwest, Mount St. Helens was like a big part of our curriculum growing up. You're like learning about volcanoes and how there's different kinds of volcanoes. And people talk about, the idea of like, oh, this kind of volcano and that kind of volcano. But how do we even know that any of that's real? The tectonic plates moving, and that's what makes mountains. And there's subterranean lava, because hot lava, because the Earth's core is made of molten metal as it spins through outer space. I'm like, well, okay, full stop. Like, that is all BS. Just like you don't see 250 million years into the past, you don't see 250,000 feet underground. You don't know what the core or the crust of the Earth is. That's the most preposterous argument of all time. The deepest hole they ever dug was like 8 miles deep, and they heard the sounds of hell out of it, so they didn't mess with it anymore. I'm not even joking. Look it up. Deepest hole ever dug. It's like in Russia, and they were like, nope. Can I type, please? Oh my goodness. Deepest hole ever dug. All right, let's see. I've got it. The deepest hole ever dug is the Kola super deep borehole in Russia, which reached a depth of 12,000 meters, 40,000 feet, or 7.6 miles. Okay, I was kind of close. Drilled by the Soviet Union for scientific research into the Earth's crust, this borehole on the Kola Peninsula is deeper than the Mariana Trench and extends further than the combined height of Mount Everest and Mount Fuji. So they've gone very deep, and they did not find anything down there. What'd you find? The sound of hell. Temperatures reached 180 degrees. Making the rock behave like plastic. Okay, hey, that's not unbelievable. Obviously, there's something going on in a subterranean capacity. Well, maybe that's just my conspiracy brain. Somebody will tell me the story about the hole that leads to hell. I'm probably crossing over two things. Pearl said, yeah, I heard that they heard hell. That's what I thought too. Maybe I'm thinking of a different hole. I swear there's like a scratchy recording from the 60s of it. Well, I guess it would be 1989. And you like hear people screaming. It's like, wow. Like, I don't know, man. But that is classic. That is one of those original type conspiracy theories that like they dug a hole all the way to hell. It's so funny. Look, it says, and we've only gone that far up in the atmosphere. Same with the depths in the ocean. I don't even think we know the furthest depths. I don't know what it's called. Somebody will remember. Wendy will remember. The Go Fast rocket, I think, is what it's called. These guys launched a super high altitude rocket. It went like 400,000 feet, and it hit the dome. Like, there's really nothing else to say. It hits the top. It's spinning. It's moving at high speed, and then it just goes shoo, and it just stops. Now, I have lots of theories to unpack. We've talked about the noble gases in upper atmosphere condition, but I think that what we would find is that there's like non-Newtonian gases in the upper atmosphere that behave kind of like a solid when you hit them. It doesn't mean that they are solid, but I think there's extremely dense light gas at the top of the atmosphere, and that's why that rocket kind of just gets stopped in the air. It doesn't explode. It doesn't act like it hits a solid object. It's as though it enters some kind of a field in which all of its energy is immediately sapped. An incredible theory to dig into is like why that happened. But they literally only went 400,000 feet. Now that's 10 times deeper than that hole they dug. But I mean, 400,000 feet is like some number of miles, and that's it, dude. That's the sky. I think they launched that out of Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. And that is really an incredible video if you guys haven't seen it. I don't remember what it's called, but yeah. Pearl says it kind of freaks me out how big everything is and we're so small. Like, even just this realm is massive, and this realm is nothing compared to all the other realms combined. Yeah, I know, and what's more crazy to me is thinking about how many people there really are. Like, I know we talk about all the time, like, the population's probably not what they say it is, but think about how many people there are. Sometimes I think it's like, are we really just irrelevant? Like, there's so much stuff, so many people, it's so big. But I think that's kind of the scope of this thing that makes it so profound, because here we are feeling so small compared to the grandeur of this thing. You know, who can measure the heavens in a span? Who can count the grains of the sand of the sea? Like, God is so incredible to have built something so incredibly massive and amazing, and we can't even fathom its size. We really can't even know. Even if we had the best like UFO 0-point distance travel, whatever, like 0-point energy, whatever. Like we could do all these things and we would still be amazed, even at the height of human development. Even if we had med beds and portals and UFOs freely available to the public, you don't get old, you can teleport wherever you want. It still wouldn't change how huge it is. We would get in portals and be like, can you believe this? Like we actually have to teleport to get from here to there because it's so far from Terra de Vista to, Germany. It's like a 60-hour flight. Like, it's not going to happen. We had like 10 layovers to get to the outer world. Like, what? Come on. It makes a lot of sense. Jesus is Lord says, search for the Go Fast rocket hits firmament. All right, let's pull it up. Why not? We brought it up. All right, amateur rocket hits the dome at 73 miles altitude. My account on Reddit has been permanently banned. I wonder why. I think I can still play the video, though.
Our mission as the Civilian Space Exploration Team is to be the first civilian team.
Let's go here and watch it here. I don't like Reddit.
Civilian team in history to launch a rocket that reaches space.
All systems are go for launch. T-minus 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'd also like to make the point here to say that the speed with which that thing left the platform, that was utterly incredible. That was ridiculous. When we watch rockets take off today, it takes forever for them to get to high altitude. You'll watch it. It's like going slowly off the platform. What nonsense. Every single rocket relies on a maximum yield of absolute force immediately. There's no stopping. There's no parsing this out. It's either enough or it's not. You don't have enough gas to be like, oh, shh, and slowly accelerate. No, it's the physics involved in this are insane. The fact that they even got this to work is incredible. I know we have military applications. Look at that. It just stops. Like if that would have hit something hard, it would have instantly blasted. I love the second camera too, because once it freezes, you can totally see the state. Look at that. Look at that horizon. As you spin around, just dead flat horizon. But that's it. We don't have any more proof than that. I mean, you don't need any more proof than that. It literally just topped out and started floating. Like it was like, oh. It's so crazy. Christy says it looks like in liquid after. I would say that's kind of my initial thought, was that it's some kind of a gel or something. Like the upper atmosphere is made of extremely dense gas, and like I think that there's principles and properties we don't understand about noble gases and different kinds of energies and stuff. And like for all we know, that thing hit the dome, and up at the top, it may have like absorbed all the energy, and you just didn't see it. It didn't like look visible, but that gas could have like rippled. And Chris T says gas can become a superfluid under certain conditions. Very interesting. They said there's a feature on it that stops it at a certain altitude. I've seen endless comments saying that's not even possible. Even if you killed the fuel for it, how do you stop the momentum? And like, let's be honest, if it was moving that fast and stopped that aggressively, it would be destroyed. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever seen those tests when the it definitely had some kind of an impact, right? It definitely like hit something. It just doesn't seem indicative of. Have you guys seen like NHTSA, what is it, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration car crash videos? Cars crash at 35 miles an hour in those videos, and they're utterly destroyed. It's a metal car. Like, I know that we have crumple zones and stuff. Cars are designed differently than they used to be, but it's like, what, you want to look up like a video like a 70s Buick crash test? Like, I'm not even joking. Like, what's more firm than like a 70s Buick Riviera 1979 frontal crash test? Watch this thing. 35 miles an hour. I don't think people quite understand that. Oh, man, no. It was barely rolling. It's destroyed. There's an I-beam frame inside of that car. It's just crumped. Now, look, that was 35 miles an hour. That rocket is not made of reinforced body material. It's not made of steel. Otherwise, it wouldn't fly. Maybe it is made of steel. Like, oh, 1/4-inch gauge tubing. I don't know. Look, I'm just telling you that heavy things don't fly, and that thing took off fast. I think that somebody could argue. I didn't see the video's stats. I wasn't paying attention. Let's look it up. Let's see. Go fast rocket. Go fast rocket top speed. It goes... They say up to 115 miles an hour. That's not it. That ain't it. They're talking about something else. What did they say? The civilian space exploration team, Go Fast Rocket, reached a top speed of 3,580 miles an hour. And then it stopped moving. So I just used 35 miles an hour to show you how an 80s Buick is destroyed. Now multiply that by 1,000. Multiply that by 1,000. Watch that Buick. Can we play this video in like super high speed? Playback speed. That's wrong. We need at least 4x. That's not gonna do it, guys. Boom. It's still not enough. We need 1,000 times that fast. And that's still not going to do anything. This is just a video being played quickly. The point I'm trying to make is that literally 3,000 miles an hour and then stop, dude. Nothing can survive that kind of. There's no system. If we had a system that could stop something going 3,500 miles an hour, don't you think we'd have that instead of brakes on our car? Be like, oh, what? It's okay, guys. We can use a field-based system to bring your car to a stop in an instant with 0 G-force. Everyone in the family is totally fine. Their soda doesn't even fly out of the cup holder. Preposterous, man. Every time I'm gaslit by the authorities, I have to think to myself, like, why are they posting that? What IDF agents are posting that comment? Oh, they had a machine that would instantly take all the energy out of it. This is a concept you guys have to understand. I know you guys are smart. When we're talking about ammunition, right, like firearms, and I can't talk too much about it, but let's talk about, like, for instance, larger bullets and smaller bullets. They have different characteristics. And the faster the round is moving, the more energy it creates, right? Like force equals mass times acceleration. And the point I'm trying to make is that usually when they're trying to make things that penetrate, they make them go fast. It isn't always about mass. You know, the old guns were always about a big caliber slug, a 75 caliber musket ball, 50 caliber BMG. But if you're trying to penetrate armor, they use what's called a slap round, which is essentially a necked down 50 cal that's 30 caliber. Let's look it up. Slap round. It's called a saboed light armor penetrator round, specialized high velocity armor piercing ammunition often used in 50 BMG or 308, featuring a tungsten penetrator inside a plastic sabot, and it also is necked down. So I don't think they're really making a clear point here, but you'll see them. This is actually an okay example. You'll see the actual thickness of the case is one that would carry a big projectile, like a thick one. But instead, it has a plastic case taking up the room that's just got a little needle in here. And so when it shoots, it discards from this plastic sabot, and this tiny little needle of lighter weight, smaller size, but way more energy is released because it's going fast. And so the point is that this rocket going not 4,000 feet per second, that's crazy fast. 3,000 miles an hour is fast, but like 4,000 feet per second is like, whoa. The point is that I don't think that rocket would have been able to come to a stop at that kind of aggression without being acted upon by some kind of otherworldly force, something not understood, supernatural, some sort of an energy absorbing property of the high altitude, which would probably make sense because there's this whole Operation Fishbowl. I think you guys have heard about this, but we'll touch base on it again. If I can not throw my mouse away. So this is basically high altitude nuclear tests. So they were basically shooting nukes at the firmament. Wow, they actually have a picture of them doing it. What? I don't remember this. That's pretty cool, man. I can't say I've ever seen this right here. Can we make it big? It's as good as it gets. Kind of looks like when the SpaceX rockets are supposedly going up into space, but they're actually just like sliding against the surface of the waters above or whatever we're looking at. Oh man, that's crazy. But yeah, you'll see that there's a famous video. You guys have seen it. It's one of the SpaceX rockets, and it's basically dragging across the sky, leaving ripples just like that high altitude explosion. And that's basically because they were trying to see if you could penetrate it. You cannot. You're not going anywhere. And that's something I like. I like that realization. I like the idea of it being like, no, you're not going to build something that's out of the system that's better than the system. You're not going to like penetrate it with its own material. Your carbon-based life form and your carbon-based rocket is not going to enter the kingdom of heaven. It's very difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom. It's even more difficult for a missile to enter the kingdom. Let me tell you what. Because this has little to do with the eye of the needle and more of the fact that there is some kind of physiological barrier preventing you from getting in there. Anyway, I know we're kind of breaking away from what we're talking about here, but think about it. Rockets are powered by fuel. All of this fuel has to come from somewhere. It's like I said, I think these giant trees are not only the source of the material, but I think they're the reason why we're trying to cover up this whole fossil fuel thing. Because if we think it's dinosaurs and the science is settled, nobody can ever tell you there were giant trees on the earth and they got turned into the fossil fuels, and that's what it really comes from and all this. And I'm sure someone who's going to pull up Genesis would be like, well, God taught Adam about various resins and things. Like, maybe it's not in Genesis, maybe that's like Enoch or something, but you know, they'll say like, oh, God taught Adam about resins. Well, of course, resins exist. We know that plants have pitches and saps and resins. And we know that there's like naturally occurring things like peat bogs and stuff where like the peat is decomposing into this bilge. You know, there's examples all over the world of decomposing material. It's not something we're unfamiliar with. It's just that when we look at the scale, we have to wonder again, what happened to all those trees? The ginormous amount of trunk and branches and leaves that just don't exist anymore. And I've seen some amazing pictures, right, of Google Maps from ultra high altitude where you look at the earth and the earth actually looks like it has impressions from giant branches and leaves on it. And maybe that's a little bit far-fetched, but it is very interesting to think about. I wonder if you can pull that, like if that's something you can just go to and look at. Like, is it really that simple? Let's see if we go all the way away. I mean, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, you literally can. Now, I know we talk about like rivers and streams and all this, but like look at the terrain here. We're out here in, I think, Washington State. Look at the texture of this earth right here. Why does it all have this like, even just right here, like look at the shape of this like mountainside material. It's like, I've seen way better examples of this, but like it looks straight up like vasculature. Like, is this all waterway? Is this all like, why does it look like that if it wasn't at some point covered with like leaves and branches? And then you get to the areas where we have done our business, right? We like created these like perfect carved cutout fields. But there are places you can go to. I mean, even if you just look at the world at large, like look at this. Look at the texture of this. Like, this looks like plant material to me. This looks like ferns. Anyway, the whole world looks like this, apparently. And I bet you, can we look up like Mesa, not Mesa, Arizona, but what's that called? Devil's Tower? So this is the stump right here at Devil's Tower. And does it look like we have branches laying all over the place? I mean, yeah, like it's the same thing. It's the same phenomenon. This isn't the best example, actually. I'm not proud of that. But you know what? It might be that the stump is, of one size, and then it is like so big that the branches don't touch the ground until many miles away. So like if you see branches over here, like impressions in the mountains that look like these cracks and crags that have kind of an organic, like a fractal appearance to them. Like, look, there's some over here. And, maybe that's just the naturally occurring mountain texture. But I've seen examples of this when compared to like cedar branches, and it is utterly compelling. Like, I don't think there's any denying the fact that it's highly likely that this is a true phenomenon. We're talking about a mountain so big, a tree so big that its branches would easily have spread for miles in every direction. And if it was chopped down, it would certainly have left a significant impression in the ground somewhere. It's kind of interesting how this direction down here has the Black Hills National Forest. There's a bunch of trees clustering up right here near where the stump is, as if these are like the seedlings from that tree when it died, and it fell down this way to the southeast. We've got the Pine Ridge Reservation over here. This is like an area of sharply changing altitude. I bet you there's coal here in this mountain region. And I think you could probably think like this, like Pine Ridge. Why is it called Pine Ridge? Because a massive pine tree fell here. Okay, I'm being speculative. I'm talking some crazy stuff. I don't know what I'm saying at this point. I had one more point to make, okay? It was about Caldera's volcanoes, right? We talked about potentially the volcanoes are also the giant tree stumps and that they have exploded due to the ignition of the massive subterranean vault of either oils, gases, coal, shale, plant material, decomposition, and flammable stuff, right? All bursting in one crazy eruption like Mount St. Helens. Totally possible, not set in stone. But then think about this for a moment. Where do we have them? Let's see. Lava tubes. Check it out. You guys know about these. They're pretty common, especially, believe it or not, near Mount St. Helens. Mount St. Helens is actually the place where they have the ape caves. Interesting enough name, since we also see a lot of Sasquatch in the Northwest, a lot of reporting of Sasquatch. But we have these cave systems, especially like near the base of the mountains, like lava tubes. And the story we're told is that this is due to that magma, subterranean magma, pushing through the earth and creating these. There's definitely some melting going on here. And we see like, okay, this is the lava tube. There's lava in it in Hawaii. And here's this. But how do we actually know what's causing this rock to melt? How do we actually know that this tube is being formed by just some sort of subterranean molten core condition, and that these lava tubes are not the remnant tubes of the root systems of these giant mountainous trees? Now think about that. If this was filled with a giant root, and that same kind of incendiary circumstance was taking place, it would burn all the tree material out. It would be reduced to dust, carbon dust, potentially even pressure and heat, forming these around the roots of the tree, and then the root of the tree rotting away or burning away or some combination therein, leaving these hollow spaces in the earth's in the crust, I guess you could say, where people can go walk around. And there's all these crags and caves all over the world, and everybody's like, oh, they're formed by billions of years of soil, and the ice age created rifts within the... It's like, I don't know, maybe. Or maybe the mountain's a giant volcano, and the volcano is a giant tree stump. Like, I don't know. I'm just saying it makes a lot of sense that it's possible that our world was totally different and crazily terraformed by the flood. Like, that's the idea of the flood, was to erase the world that had become so corrupt, so far from what God had intended for it to be. They see, you see this in the different lore and literature and entertainment. You look at the James Cameron movie, and the whole problem with it is that these colonial type humans come over and mess up their beautiful native land and cut down their tree. And it's like, we make the people who cut the tree out to be the bad guy in Hollywood because God told them to do it, right? And everyone in Hollywood hates God. They're all a bunch of Talmudic Satanists. And so they write the narrative in their James Cameron movie that the guys who come and cut down the trees are the bad guys. They're bringing fire and death and destruction to our perfect, angelic, and beautiful world. They're trading our beauty for ashes. But I think what we actually have is almost the opposite. God had built this world, everything in it. He formed man from the dust of the earth. He created the birds and the fish of the sea. And then he saw that it was good. He was happy with what he had here. And then later in the story, you hear about God saw what the world had become after the sin of man, of the fallen angels and their sins against the people and the plants and the animals. And God regretted that he had made man. Remember that? He was so upset by the corruption of this place that his beauty had been turned to ashes. And that's an incredible thing to think about, that God decided to set things right to save mankind in the future of the world through this incredible flood. And the result is, not only does God promise that he'll never flood the earth to that extent again, but the result is the ashes, the breakdown, right? Everything was reduced to this sub-base molecular form, compacted, compressed, blended, shredded, mulched. He turned whatever they thought was beautiful into ash without even burning it. And of course, the world is consumed in fire again in the scripture. It's certainly it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's part of the prophetic end of the world, that fire destroys a significant component of things. That we get ash in that case. But I think about it like, all these trees, all these people, all this stuff, all these animals, they got blended into their basest forms of carbon compositions, little diamond seeds, right? And so what is a man but dust of the earth? For of the dust of the earth you were formed, and to dust you shall return. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, you know what I'm saying? So all these people died in the flood, giants, people, monsters, and they were made of carbon just like me and you. And they too were flushed beneath millions of gallons of sloshing mud, rocks, dirt, and everything else. And they were exposed to incredible heat and pressure, just like these trees. So when we get back to our thumbnail for tonight's show, beauty for ashes, black gold, those trees were beautiful and they were reduced to carbon. But the result is that we have this massive wealth of black gold that we now use to power our world. And it may not be perfect. It may be a control scheme. But every day when I turn the key on my car, I go to work because of this stuff. All things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purposes. So, is oil inherently good or bad? No. The manipulation of the world regarding it is the problem. And it's about the stewardship of what we do with it. And it's like the same thing I was saying earlier. It's like if you burn it, it turns to ash. The earth is made of dust. You're putting dust back in the earth. You can use a carbon filter, catch those carbons, right? Shake it out in the backyard, you know what I mean? Ultimately, we're looking at a situation that is, again, looking at this, it makes a lot of sense, right? The world was destroyed. That's kind of why we were apocalyptic in the theme. And in the pile of ash, in the waste of everything that there is, beauty was left behind. We find these beautiful stones, naturally occurring diamonds. They're one of the most valuable gemstones in the world, and yet they are not part of the structure of the kingdom. The final thing is the 12 foundations of the New Jerusalem, right? I will read it to you guys really quick. And this is found in the book of Revelation. Let's go ahead and read it straight from the book. So Revelation chapter 21, verse 19 through 20. Oh, well, we're lagging out a little bit there. It says, the foundations of the wall of the city were adorned. This is the New Jerusalem. The foundations of the wall of the city were adorned with all kinds of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. And I just love that, right? We're describing the foundations of God's holy city as it descends to the earth in the final end after everything, right? After God's burned everyone and destroyed all the... It's a great kind of a conclusion of the story. Beauty from ashes. The world torched, made new again, descending down as this beautiful gemstone city, coming down from heaven as a gift for the people of the world, that God will be with his people. He'll be our God. He'll live with us. We'll have this harmonious future. And it's an amazing thing to think about, trading the ashes of this failed, fallen world for the beauty that God has in store for us in the kingdom. That's probably the greatest message of all. But let's not forget that none of those 12 stones are diamonds. So we're not only getting beauty for ashes, there's no ash even involved. There's no stain of the carbon world even on that thing. When Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this earth, he's not joking. It's not even made of the same substance. Bam. What an incredible reality. So are the diamonds we dig up from the ground people and Nephilim and giants and dragons and everything else from the pre-flood world that got basically compressed and heated into a carbon diamond seed, and then after however much time and pressure and heat, it became a big rock, and we're digging them up and wearing them on earrings and rings and like, will you marry me? Here's a dead guy. That's crazy, man. Are the diamonds dead people from the pre-flood world? Is that what that is? I don't know. But the final message is true. His kingdom is not of this earth. And as this earth passes away, the old order of things goes away, and the new is brought down, the heavenly kingdom brought down onto the earth, manifesting in reality here on the world, it's not made of this stuff. It ain't made of carbon. It's something altogether different. 12 beautiful stones. And I just can't think of anything more beautiful than that. True beauty for ashes. In the same way that Jesus Christ came to earth and died for our sins, so that the ashes of the old man could be washed away by his blood, and we could be born something new, something beautiful, something solid, something permanent, just like a diamond, but even better. Better than anything we could ever become. Because say you're made from the dust of the earth, you return to the dust when you die, and maybe your dust gets compressed, and you get to become this beautiful, shiny rock, okay? The best thing you could be is a diamond, and a diamond doesn't even make it to the kingdom. It's not even part of the kingdom's structure, man. So that transfiguration that Jesus has planned for us is to make us more than anything we could ever be as a thing of dust, but to instead be a thing of light and eternity. That's an amazing message. Whew. Love it. All right, guys. I think that's about it, right? You guys have been listening to the Main Character Podcast, Level 82. Made possible by the Culticon, that's you guys, and powered by the Christian Dominion movement, because the truth should not only be declared, it should be imposed. And with all that being said, guys, it's great to have another Wednesday hump day trash day with you guys, and I hope to see you all next week as we get into some more crazy and weird stuff, talking about things we're not supposed to talk about, as we always do. And with all that being said, guys, God bless you all. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next week. Take it easy, y'all.
I tell it like it is, I hold the secrets in my hands. Reflection and introspection is my profession. I'm recklessly disrespecting what you expect and investing in my discretion, teaching the lessons, impressions to keep you guessing what I do next, man.
Now when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison. He will go forth to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Dowg and Magog, to gather them together for the final battle, an army whose number is as the sand of the sea.
truth is waiting. Complacent organizations, they say I'm racist. They hating, they making payments on my vacation. I'm the man, I'm the king, I'm rejecting what you think. Rearranging your mentality, got some Kool-Aid you can drink. It's a scam, it's a plan, it's a con, and I'm your man. You know I tell it like it is, I hold the secrets in my hands. Reflection and introspection,